interoperability means in Web3. If you might just raise your hands first to get a feeling. All right, okay. So we don't want to be too technical then. All right, Kostas. Kostas is probably one of the rare cases where a co-founder of a top 10 blockchain project is based in Dubai. So how do you like Dubai so far?
Fantastic, by the way, here it goes from Silicon Valley. Completely different place here. We have all the technical expertise in the Bay Area. And here you have everything that has to do with deals, partnerships, and actually doing business.
Amazing, amazing. So, I mean, most of you today, I guess, know the Web3 ecosystem, and one of the big promises of Web3 was always that it's going to be the next generation of the internet. But if we make a reality check and look at the internet, how it really works today, and how the different protocols of the internet, like TCP, IP, HTTP, etc., how they interoperate, then we understand it's a very seamless and very kind of functioning technology, which allows us to have all the goodies and apps and everything, which more or less binds our lives. In Web3, we have to be honest, we are not yet there. And the biggest issue why we are not yet there is the lack of interoperability. And just to give you a quick example before we head off, the conversation is decentralized finance, DeFi. It's a $100 billion industry worldwide, but it's hugely fragmented with an ecosystem, right? So some of you might know Uniswap, which is the largest DEX in the world. It's part of the Ethereum ecosystem. They cover 60% of the market. You have other DEXs with their own liquidity pools in other ecosystems, like Solana, Sui, even Bitcoin and Tron. So imagine a world where all that would interoperate, where we would have the liquidity 24/7, 360 days in a year. Imagine the huge value that could be captured and created out of that. And I think this is the problem that this industry is about to solve, and I'm very happy that Kostas, as a Chief Cryptographer of Sui, is not only knowledgeable, but he's directly working on solving this topic. So Kostas, the first question I would have to you, I mean, Sui obviously, as we all know, cares about interoperability. However, natively, it cannot yet be interoperated with other blockchains at this point. What is the current state of interoperability, and with which third-party providers or protocols are you cooperating in order to make it happen?
Of course. By the way, imagine that Sui was created pretty much from the collapse of Libra at Facebook. I used to be the lead cryptographer at Facebook. We tried to do a lot of things there, mostly to replace Visa and MasterCard. As you can imagine, you have also to get interoperability with the Web2 world. It's not only the Web3. Then the whole idea of Sui was not to create islands. You mentioned like Uniswap before, and obviously the Ethereum ecosystem. One of the issues we've seen at the very beginning is if you don't have proper interoperability between these networks, like different flavors of Ethereum are used, Solana, and then you're connected with all of the other blockchains across the world are not EVM compatible. Sui is a new language, it's not Solidity, so it was by far more complex for us to go and have interoperability with something that is not the Move language, something that we created under Mark Zuckerberg, and then now we evolved it into an object-based model which is closer to Bitcoin and not the balance-based idea, account-based idea of Ethereum. So we had to work a lot harder to make it safer. The idea of Sui is, by the way, we created our own Ethereum bridge. So Sui has already a bridge to Ethereum. That is the validators of Sui that go and check what's happening on Ethereum, and obviously you have all of the light client and full client, literally running Ethereum full node to be able to verify transactions between the two chains. So because of this, between Sui and all the Ethereum ecosystem there is something happening already natively on Sui. This helped us a lot because now we have Wrap BTC, Wrap Tether, Ethereum, everything that is like an Ethereum coin, ERC20 coming on Sui, and this is easy for us and actually by far faster and more secure because you don't rely on external bridges. Now the other thing you have to do, obviously there is liquidity on other bridging systems as well. There is OneCode, there is Axela. What we have to do is we go and convince them, look, yes, you know Solidity. At the moment you are doing all of the bridging between the EVM compatible chains. Sui is having some of the highest, or at least on on the TVL and everything DEXs in the world, like the DeFi activity in Sui, we have to support Sui Move as well. And actually this happened. So Axelar came to us, we worked with solution engineers, and eventually it takes some time. It takes typically about 6 to 8 months to prepare a fully fledged bridge. It's secure, it's audited, and all this stuff. And eventually we have Axelar, and we have one core already coming on Sui and Ethereum and all of the AVM ecosystem. And now there is some interoperability that, yes, indeed, your question, 8 months ago it was a bit more complex, but now it's all fit pretty much settled. The other thing that happened is we created Sui because we knew what are the issues with Solidity, and we knew what are the misses of the EVM ecosystem. I was personally a white hat hacker all of my life, like since 2004, like pretty much 20, 21 years now. And I know how to actually create better bridges and better cryptography to also, when you launch Sui, to be compatible with the algorithms. And it was, in my opinion, one of the most important decisions. It was, yes, Sui might have better cryptography compared to the, in my opinion, we consider it like the COBOL of the past. Like EVM is the thing that we got as a pretty much idea how you can create a better system, but it's slow, it's not very scalable. You need to split liquidity to make it scalable, and we wanted to create an L1 that is fast, everything is sub-second, everything is like super secure. We had to enable the cryptography of EVM, of Bitcoin, of Solana, of all of the other systems on Sui. So we enabled at least 5-6 algorithms, which makes the bridging capabilities from third parties, partners, easier on Sui. And this is how you see now, yes, in the first year, interoperability was slightly slower, but now they realize, oh, I can do ECDSA also in Sui, even if Sui is using Zkilo, EDBSA. And now you can see Bitcoin bridges coming, you can see like Wormhole and all of the other oracles and bridges are saying, oh, it's not as difficult as we expected. And in some sense, we were also lucky, because Sui launched, along with the GPT evolution and evolution of AI, it's by far easier. The learning curve now of everybody who's doing script languages is, I don't know, 10, 20x better than it was 2 years ago. So technically someone said, look, to have a bridging between Move blockchains, which is Aptos and Sui is also using object-based systems, which is closer to Bitcoin rather than Ethereum, it will take some time for people to get used to it. But no, because of AI, you can learn now a new language in 2 days, 3 days. It's pretty much like the Duolingo of translation and learning a new language, but now on the blockchain, right? So it helped us a lot. In 6 months, the progress was so high, and that's why the DeFi, because now there is Tether, there is USDC, native USDC, because there is another form of interoperability. You have to go to Circle, you have to go to Tether, you have to go to all of the stablecoin providers and say, look, one is, yes, we bridge something, USDT, USDT0 with layer 0 and so on. The other is launch natively into Sui. And all of this combination happened faster because of cryptography and AI, because it's aiding the developer to be faster.
You mentioned before the new programming language that Sui is built on, right? So it's Move, and it's object-based, not account-based. So basically, all the objects are on the blockchain. They are not sitting on some IPF server that is kind of remote and offering all sort of latency risk. How does this new data model offer new paradigms to create, not only to represent assets on the blockchain, but also to create interoperability and communications with other ecosystems? What's the vision here?
That's a great question. By the way, at Facebook, we had a balance-based system. Facebook, Libra, there are other reasons that it collapsed. It was not technical, it was obviously regulation, it was COVID, very difficult to do lobbying, but then it was, I mean, imagine you're a big company, you cannot easily launch if you have all the social data of the users and the financial data afterwards. In Sui, we said, look, we were in a very big company like Facebook, some things to change because we proposed the object-based model even while we were at Libra. It takes time, there is bureaucracy. Some people here believe that Google and Facebook will steal your idea in the next month. It's not going to happen. It takes them 1 year only to have the managerial stuff and the flow up to the director. All of these are slower than we do. If you see how many products from Facebook and Google are successful, eventually it's 3-4 out of the 300 attempts they have as startups. So we said, now we're building something new. Object-based is more natural if you want to do parallelization, because one of the reasons that Ethereum and Solana or other blockchains are trying to scale and they have like a bottleneck is because there are always some funnels on some single processes. Why? The NFTs and all of the coins on Ethereum, even your balance on Ethereum, is now based on one particular number, and when you want to move some funds out of it, you need to wait for your previous transaction to make it to the blockchain until you remove something, decrease something from this balance. But if you have objects, what is the benefit, right? It's like cash. You're having two notes in your pocket. One is like a $10 note, the other is another $100 note, but I can give you, like in the same flow, in the same block, two transactions that are completely independent between each other because I'm touching a different pocket. So the objects themselves allow us to have high frequency, which means that if someone wants to build a global layer now for coordination, they cannot go on Ethereum. You cannot wait 15 seconds or 20 seconds, right?
Let me quickly interrupt you here for the audience. Object-based, what is it? Give us a practical example. Yes. For instance, an NFT, right?
Yes.
What is the difference between object-based and account-based?
The most basic scenario is balances, actually. It's not the NFTs. And NFTs is the second example. I will give both examples. Now you go to your Web3, actually the banking. You go to your bank and you see a balance. This is a balance-based system because when you're making transactions to your HSBC bank or anything else, they need to reduce something from your current running balance. Mm-hmm. But when you're having objects, you literally have nodes as similarly to cash. It's the same thing. So if I have a total balance of 1 million, this 1 million is not one single balance. This 1 million is many single objects, single nodes or coins, where you can grab them independently from this balance, and all of it, the aggregation, is the sum of the balance of each object.
It's on the chain.
It's on the chain. So there is an account, I have an address on Sui, and this address on Sui owns coins, nodes, now, not balances. Which means that I can now parallelize as much as I want. This is one thing you can do with objects. But there is another thing. Now that you have objects, the same thing is happening when you're buying NFTs. You know how it is on Ethereum now. There is a hash map, there is a bucket, where everybody has pretty much the mapping between this address owns this NFT, this address owns this NFT, this address owns this NFT. As you can understand, this bucket is a congestion point. If you want to go and remove an NFT address, and now I assign the new NFT to you, I have to lock all of the bucket. I do the transfer, and now the others are waiting in the queue until they go to the bucket, like pretty much people waiting to get water from the tap, right? It's very complex, it's very slow. But in Sui now, you own the asset. I'm sending you the asset, and you can send the asset at the same time to someone else, so we can scale pretty much indefinitely here. If we're talking about interoperability, this means that with objects, first you can do like the global networking layer, coordination layer to be a lot faster than it was before. So one thing is if you want high frequency trading, high frequency swaps, you cannot go to balance-based systems. It's expensive and slow. The second thing is while you're having an object, the object now can evolve. Imagine that. Let's go to education, right? In education, they have a certificate, which is an NFT, which is the degree that you're getting from the university. And there was an issue with one of your NFTs that, oh, you got a grade 8 out of 10, but it was a mistake from the professor, it should be 9 out of 10. But now it's an object. Go there to the object, there is a field in the object called grade in mathematics, and it changes the object from 8 to 9. How do you, I mean, on Ethereum and all of the other places, it's a long process, it's a very expensive process. Now you're just getting one object, you're going to the university, it signs over this like change, and you still own the NFT. The NFT never left your account. Yeah. So instead of burning it, you can scale on top of the objects now, and you have composability of the objects.
That's a good point.
And this is important because someone is building a real estate asset. But on the real estate, you want to create loans, mortgages, insurances. Now you want to have inside the object new properties from other contract developers. How do you do that on Ethereum? Yeah. Because everybody is owning their own contract, and the contracts do not easily communicate with each other. And what you see is numbers. While you see objects. This is a title, this is a line, this is a country, this is a real estate asset, this is the office of the real estate asset. Yeah. So it makes it's natural, right? And there is another benefit on objects, by the way, people don't understand it. If you want to go Zcash, private transactions with balances is very difficult because you have to update the balance one day, and eventually you cannot make parallelized confidential transactions. That's why Zcash and Monero and all of these are very, very slow. But Sui, it has this model of the Bitcoin where everything is a bit exotic. So you can hide now the objects. Yeah. So you can have parallelized confidential transactions by far faster than anybody else in the past.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's updated features in the future, right? Even now, we're talking about interoperability. In the future, how do you do confidential interoperability? So it's in a by far better place now because of object-based systems.
No, exciting news, and the industry is not sleeping. That's good to see. We are talking mainly here about the interoperability of blockchains, but how about the interoperability of existing blockchains, like for instance, Sui for that matter, with, let's say, AI agents or with other systems of the internet that we already know? Does Sui have a strategy on that?
We do have a strategy. Very recently, I published, by the way, a paper called The Everything of Things. So Sui is built for agents. As I told you, we're very lucky that GPTs and Gemini and all of this technology came pretty much at the time launching Sui. So the object-based model can now create AI models on top of Sui by far easier than it was before. Because literally this AI inference and everything has to work with objects. How do you do it, right? I mean, if you're running something in Java and C and all of the existing languages, you cannot very simply go to a scripting language that doesn't have objects. So for us, it was by far easier, and what we did is we had to create a new model actually for communicating with these devices. Imagine we're having IoTs now. There are drones flying. There are many sensors across the world. We even had the first coffee machine that can now work with Sui. Why? Because it was very simple to create an object for an espresso or a DeLonghi coffee machine. We have Raspberry Pis now that can work with objects because you're running C or Java inside these devices. And if you are object-based in the Web2 language, and you are object-based also in the Web3 languages, we're moving a lot faster than anybody else. So you will realize that agentic systems and IoT systems are by far easier to be implemented in Sui. And this is why you will see how can you send a transaction by SMS or even underwater. It's happening on Sui because you can create the eSIM or the SMS being an NFT, that you own it, and then pretty much you're paying for something, and this transaction doesn't go through the internet, it goes through the SMS, or it goes through AM/FM. We managed to do all this stuff. Actually, it's operating. I can send you now a transaction even if I don't have internet. And as you can have all of these technologies, and they're all objects, now there is another object, an IoT sensor comes and says, look, also I'm in the jungle. Like the Amazon River wants to tokenize everything there, so owning a jaguar as a token is by far more helpful for the society compared to going and killing the jaguar. The jaguar is an object. People understand it. Someone from Colombia or Brazil understand it's an object. It's not a number in some hash map on Ethereum. And now it's very easy to create new projects, connecting devices, connecting agents compared to what it was before. That's why you see the progress on IoT and communication outside the internet is faster on Sui compared to other blockchains.
So basically, following your logic, it's fair to say that the reason why interoperability hasn't yet been achieved in this industry is because the underlying base virtual machines and technologies and programming languages and protocols were not technically ready for it.
They were not, because consensus-wise, Ethereum had to compress everything into smaller transactions because it was expensive and slow. Yeah. If you create a faster consensus system, then you can say, let's bring back structure. Because we're already hundreds of times faster than the other L1s. Let's now create objects where they can also help on scalability, but also naturally in the brain of developers and people, it's giving the representation of what you're actually having. Yeah. So you don't need to compress anymore. If you can have a faster blockchain, leave everything out that was compression and previously you can see only numbers. Bring structures into the chain. And now it's easier for the IoT developer or a bank employee who just finished the bachelor studies and they never got into master or PhD to understand, oh, this is very similar to Java. So I can very easily jump into Move and have interoperability between the e-banking and the blockchain. People don't understand that agentic technology, imagine real estate now, the slowest, because we're in Dubai, yeah? The slowest asset to buy because there is no AI. Put AI and the GDP of Dubai will double by 2035.
So basically AI agents instead of real estate.
Yes, you have to do that, but to do this you have to have common languages between the previous world and the new world. When internet started, we had this discussion before we get into the room, right? There was not something else to be compatible with. But the blockchain is, in my opinion, one of the mistakes of Vitalik, all of the other smart language experts. They want to create something new without taking into account that the developers of Web3 is 0.0001% of what is on Web2. The JavaScript developers are hundreds of times more than Web3 developers. We don't want to suck like the community of Solana and Ethereum industry. We want actually to get Web2 users coming into Solana.
Makes a lot of sense. A provocative question before we wrap up. In the internet, the value was not on the base layer, right? If you look at the internet protocols, they have basically zero monetary value. The value was captured on the level of the applications, of the apps, of the various products that we know and use today. In blockchain, it's the opposite actually. So we have huge values created on the layer of these kind of layer ones, layer two blockchains, but we're still missing the full interoperable kind of scenario. Plus, there are few applications on top of blockchains that are really valuable. There are some, but very few outside of speculation and trading. Isn't this a risk for the layer ones that they will eventually lose value if we have full interoperability and people start to build applications on top of it?
That's a great question. So definitely we have to go a layer up, like our smart wallets in the future have to have AI. The user who is doing a swap between Bitcoin and Sui, they shouldn't even know how this is happening, right? I mean, some AI, I don't know why there is no smart wallet, by the way. This is an opportunity. There is a gap now in the industry to have wallets that have AI to help you do transfer swaps and all of this stuff. So I agree with you, it has to go a layer up. And then if you are hiding the blockchain, you're asking me, does Sui now have value if nobody knows this?
Exactly.
Right? If you're hiding this, yes, it has a value. Because technically you have to go to the fastest one and the safest one. And if you win in the infrastructure layer, and you have governance now using Sui because Ethereum is slow, and you have all of the cool features for interconnectivity that, okay, Sui is supporting all of the signatures algorithms, not only from the other blockchains, but also from the banks. The transactions and the gas and everything that is like contributing and giving incentives to the community will be 3, 4 maximum blockchains. The same thing as today. Everybody knows Oracle about databases and probably a couple of cloud providers. It's not 20 providers, right? So eventually one of them will be the global coordination layer. In my opinion, Sui at the moment, regarding the innovation hype, it has this element of being the fastest to be the global coordination layer. So even if you hide it, people will know that stand by Sui.
Amazing. That was a great closing remark. Stand by Sui. Kostas, thank you so much for your time. I encourage everybody to have a word with him, to have a kind of an expert like him in this room is really amazing. And yeah, wishing everybody of you a great conference. Hope you have a better understanding of interoperability, what it is, what the challenges are, and where the way leads us in the future. Thank you.